Ian shows money has always been of secondary importance to philosophers, judging by the paltry evidence I will now present. Socrates walked around barefoot, covered in dirty sheets, and never washed his hair, which probably didn't help him when he passed the hat, if he even had a hat. Nobody had hats back then. Who had money for hats? Take Isaac Newton and Leibniz. Newton wound up being in charge of English money, maybe even rolled around in it like Scrooge McDuck. History has averted its eyes, or her eyes, I suppose. Leibniz, on the other hand, was always looking for a patron, always scrambling for a buck. Both men wore wigs, which I imagine were not cheap, and Leibniz wound up his days dressing in finery 20 years out of date, perhaps because his budget precluded new outfits. Also, Newton hated Leibniz. Newton had accused Leibniz of stealing calculus from him. Leibniz denied that, but he often came across as what we now call inauthentic. While Newton was intimidating, powerful, and well-connected, and also a prickly, paranoid, nasty kind of person, Leibniz, though smarmy, was smart as hell, as smart as Newton. I mean, they both came out with calculus at the same time, unless you think Leibniz stole it. I mean, really? You going with that answer? Neither of them got rich. On to the 20th century. Wittgenstein, he who said, "What we cannot speak about, we must pass over in silence," which seems a bit tautological, but hey, look who's talking, came from one of the wealthiest families in Austria. But what wasn't grabbed by Nazis, he gave away in a fit of secular monkishness. No money there either. Seems to me philosophers have it easy now. Some of them even have tenure. Used to have to know Latin and Greek and even French if you were ever invited to court, which happened a lot. Who needs that? It can lead to death, as with Socrates, or a bizarre feuds, as with Newton and Leibniz, or trying to avoid Nazis, as with Wittgenstein. On the other hand, one can't escape the nagging feeling that unless it's related to quantum physics, philosophy doesn't have the panache it once did. Programs like Philosophy Talk, it's true, depend on money to keep going, but only occasionally does the begging bowl get trotted out, just before funding requests or during public radio pledge weeks. Socrates prided himself on knowing nothing. He would find the meaning of a concept such as virtue or duty by interviewing an expert who doesn't know what he's talking about. Eventually, the Greeks got so annoyed they killed him. Wittgenstein gave his money away and threw philosophy out the window. But today, philosophy is safely back in the house. Nazis are in disguise and don't really care what philosophers think unless they're Jordan Peterson or some damn podcaster. Unless you poke them with the yardstick of common sense, they'll probably leave you alone. After they cut off your funding, of course. But the question is on the table, or at least my table. What do philosophers know, and when do they know it? Certainly philosophers can lay claim to a lot of stuff. History, science, art, poetry, drama, politics, psychology, all have intersected with philosophy at one time or other. Surely there's a way, beyond tenure, which is becoming problematic, I heard, to monetize a vast trove of useless knowledge inside every philosopher's brain. Trivial pursuit has often led to admiration of those who pursue the knowledge wedges that are the markers of victory. But there's no money in it. TV's Jeopardy rewards knowledge, but only if you can put it in the form of a question. Pub quizzes show great promise as a path to monetization, especially if the questions all center around how many women Schopenhauer shoved down a flight of stairs, for instance. As you've just heard, in their first pub quiz outing, the hosts and guests of the program crowned themselves with glory and beer and pizza. There were no losers, although some were more correct than others. All we need now is an endowment, a venue with a happy hour, and enhanced memorization skills to own the pub quiz and bring it kicking and screaming into the 21st century. A quick scan of the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy and an eidetic memory, and we are golden, my friend, golden. Remember what Socrates said, the unexamined life is not worth living, though, I don't know, how do you prove a claim like that? I gotta go.